Hey everyone, Reid Henrichs at Valor. The purpose of this video today is we're going to talk an AR-15 or an AK in a close quarters situation, and we'll see which one gives you an advantage. Let's go ahead and get started. You know, one thing I like about ARs and AKs is that they're just practical, simple, easy to use rifles. Both are good for home defense, depending on where you live and what kind of structure that you live in. I'm a big fan of either one, and I believe getting repetitions on either one as well. If you're just starting off, I would stick with one. If you're going to get an AR, I would stick with that for a while. If you get an AK, I would stick with that for a while. Get consistent, get repetitions in there. One of the arguments I keep hearing about the AK is that it's inefficient in close quarters, that the AR is so superior and so much faster. Well, that sounds a lot to me like guys that pretty one-sided, guys that don't give this weapon a chance, guys that don't put the repetitions in on this gun. I've got about an equal number of rounds through an AK versus an M16 or M4, AR-15, whatever, and an AK. And this AK right here, it doesn't have any special safeties on it, just has a standard AK safety right here that we manipulate like this. Now I'm a right-handed shooter, guys. We'll get that caveat in there. Lefties out there, you're gonna have to adjust according to your needs, but we're gonna talk in general about typical speed. I think a lot of guys get wrapped up around arbitrary numbers and part times. Do I shoot to part times sometimes? Yeah, sometimes. You can see our rifle and pistol standards. I've done a video about those a few years ago. Thing is, guys, is that when we're dealing with just raw speed on an non-discrimination target, for example, we know it's a target that we're going to shoot, there's not much decision making to be made. We know what the target is, where it is, and we know that it's a shoot target ahead of time. In a real environment, we're going to have to discriminate targets by their behavior. What are they going to do that may cause us to present our rifle and shoot in the first place, such as a home defense situation, such as in law enforcement, if you're going to have some people in the crowd that are hostile, some that are not, hostage situations, things like that. So it's not all black and white. So the first thing I'm going to show you is just raw ability. We're going to set our part time for a second. Can we do it faster? Oh yeah, absolutely. But that's one of those things where all we're doing is pumping our own ego up. I think 1 second is a very good time to be able to see, present, and make an accurate shot onto the target. And we're going to be able to do that with both the AR and the AK. So I'll start with the AR-15 first. I'm going to set that 1 second par, and then we'll do the same thing for an AK and see if there's any difference. All right, guys, I'm going to start with the AR. We're going to go one shot in 1 second or less, 7 yards, typical room distance, hallway in a house, a very standard close quarters distance for one shot to the body. Here I'm going to start the low ready, muzzle below my belt buckle, which is our standard ready position. Okay, and we did that in a .88, guys. That's a nice high center chest shot right there. So that's under a second. That's our part time. Now I did that, of course, with iron sights. Could we do it faster? Sure, but I think that if you do that, then you're not only going to overdrive the gun, but you're not going to get a good shot on target. So now let's do the AK. All right, now same distance, AK from 7 yards. We are going to do one shot, standard safety on this one. So once again, guys, wouldn't you believe it? The exact same time, .88. So it doesn't matter what rifle you're doing. If your mechanics and your consistency is the same, it ain't going to make a lick of difference. We're still one shot, well under 1 second. And I know you competition guys out there are saying, oh, I can do it way faster. Once again, it's about consistency, target discrimination, not just raw skill. And of course, we can do this faster. But what we got to make sure is, just any hit isn't good enough. We got to make sure that we're up in the nice high thoracic cavity of that target, right as close to the spine as possible. Your little 8-inch circle or your little long rectangle box, that may not be good enough. We're really trying to bust up high right up here. Okay, now on this rifle here, it's an AK. However, this is a Krebs AK with a Krebs safety right here. What this does, as opposed to a traditional AK safety, which is only out here like the one you just saw on the previous rifle I used, this one here has a ledge for your index finger. So what this allows you to do is keep your firing grip on the rifle. If you're going to do that traditional AK safety, you may have to modify your firing grip before you get back on. Not a problem, as I just showed you, but some people prefer to have this on their AK. I know a lot of guys that do, and this is something that you may want to use if you do not want to break your firing grip. As I told you guys, it really doesn't matter that much, and I'm going to show you a shot with this with a Krebs safety for your AK without having to break your grip. So guys, once again, right there, under a second, 0.93, so we're right there. I mean, one shot was 0.88, the other one is another 0.88, 0.93. So we're talking consistency across a variety of platforms as well as a variety of different safety. So it really does not matter as long as you stay consistent. All right, so now we're going to go into a shoot house application. You know, raw speed is fine, but I want you to understand something. That's going off an auditory cue. When we go into a real environment, such as your house or your place of business, if there's an active shooter, or your apartment complex, wherever it is, you're going to be going off a visual cue. So the auditory start, where a predetermined stimulus, that's not going to do us much good. Is it okay to build a little bit of raw skill? Sure. But the real application is going to be going into that shoot house environment. And our techniques have to work on the flat range as well in the shoot house, right? And if it breaks down somewhere in there, or if one only works on the flat range and we're trying to go into a shoot house, the technique doesn't work, we got to discard that technique. So what I'm going to do is, I have no idea what kind of targets are inside that shoot house. My wonderful assistant has put the targets up, and they're photographic targets. So I do not know what's going to be inside that room, if anything at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that these times, a lot of times, can be arbitrary. And what's going to matter is that we process the information. And I cannot point my gun at somebody that doesn't need to be shot. Think of it if it was your wife or your daughter or your husband, whoever it is, co-worker. We can't just do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the presentation's the same, and I'll show you this application here. So come up, I'm going to make sure that I look inside the room. I'm at the low ready. Notice the muzzle is below my belt buckle, because I don't want to point a gun at somebody inadvertently, all you high speed action guys out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look, make sure that I see what I see, process the information. Okay, I'm going to continue my pie. All right, we're good there, and then I'm going to come in, and there we go. So it's a good thing that I didn't index my rifle on one of these targets, because one of these targets right here clearly has a badge. Now that would be bad news if I pointed my firearm at somebody like that. Notice this gentleman here, he's got a pistol and gets serviced right there in the ocular cavity with 2 rounds of 5.56. So what you should be noticing there is that we only come up on the target when we have to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back, we're going to get this reset, and I'm going to go to an AK, and then we'll see what the difference, if any, is. All right, so now we're going to try that with an AK. I'm going to go into a room where there's possible bad guys. See, I get a stimulus inside there. We'll move forward. Show you that low ready position as always. Remember, on the AK, we're going to have to maybe modify our grip on that safety. Doesn't slow us down, as we showed you on the flat range. So let's go ahead and try it with this one. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, guys, once again, we show it. We did not know what those targets were, but nonetheless, what we're looking at here is we got a hostage. Guy's got a gun, arm around her. Don't really have a body shot here, so I had to take the headshot, both of them in the ocular cavity with some 7.62 by 39. Notice, though, I did not bring my rifle up until I knew there was a target. If we come up on a target that doesn't need a rifle pointed at it, that's not a good day. So it just goes to show you that a lot of the presentation, rifle, AR, AK, close quarters, I think a lot of it is conjecture. I think a lot of it is people not being really familiar with an AK and just taking the time to put the reps in. So the AK is just as quick as an AR is, and you really shouldn't be trying to do things as fast as possible. You should be trying to do them as correctly as possible. We cover a lot of drills like this in our rifle classes. We do target discrimination, and we work in teams in a lot of our classes. So if you want to get polished up on your rifle and really get those repetitions in, come out and see us for one of our rifle classes. We'll be very happy to spool you up on that. If you found the information in the video helpful, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Facebook. That link is down below. And like I said, guys, if you want to get spooled up on your rifle, come out to Valor Ridge and we can help you. This is Reid Henrichs of Valor Ridge reminding you, the lessons that we learn are written on the tombstones of others. We'll see you on the ridge.